Hi, this is Grandad Jack, and I'm back to show you how I build part 2 of this N-scale layout from Woodland Scenics. So before we start any of the actual foam road bed and gluing it down onto the top of this foam sheeting, I lay all the track out on the foam baseboard because this shows you every piece of track that needs to be joined together. It's all numbered, and you just simply take the track out of the box and place it where the numbers show. The track sections are all joined with the fish plates supplied in the kit, so it's pretty straightforward. I then transfer the whole track plan onto a separate sheet of foam that I have, and I do this by putting sticks of timber across the track and taping it together and basically just sliding it off like you would slide a pizza off a pizza tray into a pizza box. Same sort of thing. All I'm doing is transferring the track plan onto a separate sheet of foam so that it's easier to put on the layout once the road bed is all done. The reason I do this is because it's easier to put all the track together when the numbers are displayed on the foam base, because once all the formwork is done, you can't see the numbers. So I simply put all the track together on the base sheet, then slide it off, and then do the foam work on the base sheet so that's all covered. So I then just slide the whole track plan back onto the layout sheet on top of the formation that's been done. So once the track has been positioned back onto the layout, I just like to check all the joints to make sure they're tight and in place, and position the track pretty much where it's got to go, because now you don't have the base to show exactly where the track is. So you just got to find about where it goes on the formwork, and it works pretty well and straightforward. The bridge comes with the kit, so that's just positioned in place over the other track where it passes underneath. The next job is to put all the foam strips under the track, which raises it up from the formwork. This makes it easier to ballast. Because all the track's already put together, I just simply slide this foam strips under the track. I cut it halfway through so I can bend it around the curves, and then I just simply glue it and put a weight on top of the track, so you can glue the track to the foam as well while you're at it. So you're gluing the foam strips to the formwork and the track to the foam strips, all in one shot. So here's what the track plan looks like once all the foam strips are put under the track and that it's all glued down. And basically it's ready to ballast. You don't have to get the foam strips exactly under the track in some places, because it doesn't really make too much difference, because once it's ballasted you won't see that anyway. So you just try and position it the best as possible. So now it's time to test the track by putting a train on it and giving it a run. So I'm hooking up a power pack and some wiring, and here we go. So that's now running well, it's all tested. So now we can go on to the next stage of the layout. The kit comes with paper profiles for cutting out for the backdrop. They supply foam sheets for this, which have to be joined. but I decided to use MDF, which is medium density fibre board. That's a 3mm MDF. So I lay the paper sheets out onto the fibre board and then make a mark and cut them with the jigsaw. And that way I can then paint them up and use them for the backdrops around the layout. I just lay them on the fibreboard sheet to get the maximum use of the sheet I can without having too much waste. You will notice at this point on the profile paper plan that there's a place for an access hatch or an access point to get inside the tunnel. In case a train derails or whatever, you can get into the back of the layout. This assumes though that you can get access to the rear of the layout, and in this case the layout that I'm building for this customer, they didn't have access to get to behind the actual layout itself. So what I did to compensate for not being able to get to the rear of the layout is I did access from the top. In other words, the top of the mountain can be removed to get right into the back of the tunnel. So it has a separate lift-off section of the mountain. Once I've cut out all the profile sections that go around the layout, I paint them a white colour. I give them 2 coats. I just glue them using liquid nails and I tack them on with brads or tacks, and then I put blocks of wood in to just give them more support. So now that's done, we start to fill in the gaps and build up the levels using sheet foam. A tunnel profile is cut from foam as seen here, and the actual brick portals are glued to the outside of this ladder. The drawing on the foam sheet show where the tunnels have to go, as shown on the drawing here. So the foam tunnel entrances are glued in place where they are shown on the drawing. I've cut and glued foam sheets and put them on the inside of the tunnel so that the lift-off section has something flat to sit on. The drawing on this kit shows the rock castings near the top of the hill on the layout, but I could not do that on this one because I needed the lift-off section to be able to be as light as possible. The kit comes with rubber moulds and plaster to make the castings, so I've just used that to make the plaster rock castings. Once they are dry, I just paint these or stain them with a black acrylic wash. I then just glue these onto the foam between the tunnels. There's also a creek next to one tunnel, so I add some rock castings to that as well. So this is what the lift out section looks like once it's placed over the tunnel area, and that whole section can be just lifted off, which I'll do to paint it. I've made the lift off section just using sheet foam and layering it and adding contours and carving it to fit the contour of the hill over and above the tunnel section. I've also added some brickwork to either side of the bridge. I've bypassed the traditional method of filling in all the gaps of building a model railway. Some use plaster cloth over crumpled paper or chicken wire. I just use good old sawdust, put half a bucket of sawdust with a solution of PVA glue mixed with water and mix it all up and then apply that. This is a really easy way to fill in all the parts that need building up. Once it's dry, it's quite effective because you can either just stain the sawdust or you can apply the woodland seeding texture to go over the top, and the results come up really good. this point I take the lift-off section off separately and put it on a table, and then I colour that using the base material they have in the kit. It's a darker colour than I would normally use, but it doesn't matter because we're putting the texture over the top. So I just spray paint that, or you can just brush it straight on with a brush. So it's then easy to apply the Woodland Scenics texture, which I just sprinkle over the texture paint, and also spray glue it with diluted PVA glue. So this is what it looks like when I've put the finished textured lift out section back on top of the tunnel section, where it all blends in together and comes up pretty good. I then apply the Woodland Scenics ground cover to all parts of the layout, and they have some different colours to do this. I also ballast the track at this stage using the ballast provided. For the grey areas and the roads, I've used Glen Scenery products, the light grey gravel for this. So this is what it looks like before I apply lines to the road and any buildings on the layout. I've also put some stone walls inside the tunnel so that when you look into the tunnel from the outside, you can see the stone wall on the inside of the tunnel. So that's the layout covered now with ground cover and ballast to the track, and grey gravel to the roads and lighter sands to the creek. With regards to the buildings on this layout, the customer actually chose those, and there wasn't a lot of them. There was only about half a dozen buildings that they chose, and that's what I put on the layout. So I had to sort of place them strategically so that they would make the layout look reasonably occupied. The buildings weren't part of the kit, so they were purchased separately, and they were ready to go. They were already painted and weathered up, so I just placed them at different points on the layout. Same with the vehicles and other details they supplied. So I've just added some other detail parts like the train crossings and other things like the fencing around some of the houses and some little figures and horses and animals, and put them on the layout where I thought best. There wasn't a lot of trees and bushes in the kit, so I put those where I thought would look good. I placed bushes along the part where the lift-off section is to hide that gap that's there. More details can be added later, like telephone poles and street lighting and more cars and more people and more scenery. So that's how I built this N-scale model railway straight out of the box. It took about 5 days to build this layout from start to finish. This is Grandad Jack, and I hope to see you on the next video.